All right, we are live again. Welcome, Andrew.
Glad to be here. Awesome.
How's it going? I heard, on the grapevine, you had a busy week, I guess.
Yeah, I'm running a couple cohorts right now. I intend to just be running one in the future at any given time, but as I was getting the course launched, I started two cohorts at different times, so they're overlapping right now. But I'm managing, and people are having breakthroughs, so that's what it's all about: is serving people.
Awesome,
Yeah.
brilliant. Love that we are opening up with this because I think we can link this to our topic as well, which is going all in. And I think something that we both can share our stories around and really talk about something that kind of goes against like 90% of the advice that we see, that honestly I found quite shocking when I first saw, like, why is the general advice just keep waiting, just lay low, just play it small, wait for the perfect moment, don't, make any rush decisions, when that wasn't my reality. I don't know how you yeah, what you thought when you first saw the generic advice out there.
Yeah, I think it's self-serving a lot of times. I think people who are telling others to, play it safe, kind of, it's tailored to their message, their brand, their offerings, right? And full transparency, like my product and message is the opposite, right? So I encourage people to go all in, but I really do believe in it, because I think there's a mindset shift that occurs when you like bet on yourself. You go all in full time on this, and you kind of step outside the matrix in a sense, right? You start to let go of a lot of these things that we were told about hard work, being somebody who is of value in society by holding a job, by having an income. You let go of that attachment, and you start to see a lot of people still subscribing to that, and you're released from it, and you're able to think more clearly, I believe, and you start to have the time to focus on what really matters to you, your values. And when you're building a personal brand, that I think is the most important thing, is to remain in alignment, so that you can attract the tribe that fits you best.
Absolutely. I think what trips people up is that they want to quit for all the wrong reasons, right? It could be like, I want to make money, when, if you keep constantly attaching it, we can maybe talk about this over the next hour, what that attachment to money is and what role does it play. But I think, to me, I have looked at, I always had like role models and try to really operate based on how they operate, how they run their own business, their lives. And I've never seen anyone who was able to live a fulfilled life as an entrepreneur who didn't value their time and their energy and their attention more than the money they make, for example. So, of course, we could talk about people's specific context, who's being overpaid, underpaid, everything else. But the shift that we can make that helps us step into this identity or role of an entrepreneur is to value your time and energy. And if someone spends, 5 days of their week in a full-time job, that's going to take up a lot of not just time but also mental space, because especially if they are already in the position of like wanting to leave, they've been doing that for um we sometimes years, right? It takes someone years and years to kind of commit to taking that leap of faith. A lot of mental space of that resistance that we could channel into creating, into building that business.
Yeah, absolutely. You posted something the other day and I commented on, which is that you don't hear many entrepreneurs saying, "Oh, I wish I had started later," right? Like they're all saying, like, "I wish I had gone all in sooner." Um,
That's right.
and so I think it is, to your point, basically.
Yeah. So we can kind of unpack what we see as some of those invisible sometimes, right? Strings that people attach to being employed and why it could take someone sometimes forever to make that decision. And if anyone's here, we can see we've been watched by 10 people already. So welcome everybody who's watching. Feel free to leave your comments. Say hello, whatever platform you are on. We can even bring up your nice little comments here, give you some more visibility. And there's also links in both of our profiles, including our YouTube lives. If anyone wants to join us, be part of the conversation, we can actually bring you guys up here right next to us somewhere. So feel free to click that link if you'd like to ask a question, share a story, or yeah, we are here. And I think both Andrew and I are huge proponents of community and just hanging out together.
Yeah, creating a space for people to share and grow together. Absolutely.
So say hello in the comments if anyone's watching here, and feel free to ask your questions. So I think it really, for me, starts with why people first choose to work in a job, why we do as well, we did in the first place. So much of that comes from this idea of perceived security, right? You're going to have a salary that you're going to get on a monthly basis. All you need to do is just to go to work, follow instructions, go throughout the day, leave, and then you will receive that monthly salary. So we attach so much of that sense of security to the job we do because we believe that money, that stream of income is going to come every single month. And the truth is, and this is partly what I teach in my program, because a huge part of my program is going all in as well. This is what we kind of lay down. I make my clients commit to that the first day because I do believe when you make that decision, you live in that knowing that I'm going to live into that future that I know is going to happen. I'm not going to doubt myself. Everything will shift. And I think what I teach them is that what security is basically an illusion. Our brain creates that illusion of security because if you think about it, that's always one of the best examples I've come up with. Let's say 9/11, right? On that day, people went to work in the World Trade Center in New York City. They believed on the way there on the subway that they are safe. So were they safe? Not really, right? So that safety that our brain creates is an illusion, and something that we can always create is that internal safety in ourselves to say, I'm gonna go all in because I trust myself. And I think that's a lot of what's missing out there. Bringing yourself back or getting that personal power back and say, I create what I create. I create that life that I'm out there to create by knowing that I can trust myself. It's a huge journey, and I think both of us are on this journey ourselves, experimenting, not knowing it all and still doing it. But it really all comes down to, can I give myself that internal security, even if it feels uncomfortable to be in the unknown, in the unfamiliar?
Yeah. You touched upon the illusion of security that people have. I mean, I was just talking to somebody about that on LinkedIn this morning in the comments. It's shocking to people when they're fired from a job or a company shuts its doors. People are just, you can see their faces, the overwhelm and shock, their world has been upended. And I think it's because they've really bought into this belief that if they do a good job, if they continue to show up, that everything is fair and right, and they will continue to be paid for their hard work. And then I think some people have a bad experience here or there, and they start to realize okay, I get it. It's not exactly what we were led to believe, and they start to look for different paths in life. I'm one of them. You may be one of them as well. We've talked a bit about it, but yeah, it's really an illusion of security. Whoever you work for, like the moment you're no longer of value to the company, or they, don't think that they're getting the return on investment, especially now with AI coming out, like a lot of companies are starting to replace employees. Like
They already are. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like that security like isn't there anymore. You don't work at a company for 40 years and get a retirement party and a gold watch anymore. Like that's just not how it works. And it's started to change from generation to generation. I think my generation, millennials, were kind of criticized a lot for jumping ship every few years to like get better salaries at this company or that company, especially in tech, right? But that has become the norm, and I think a lot of us have learned like to not invest too much in the company because they'll turn around and cut you just as quickly. And then Gen Z now, they're criticized for not wanting to work for someone else. It's like each generation kind of takes it a step further, right? It's like they want to build their own thing. They want to start their own companies and build businesses and careers around their own interests rather than try to fit into some box at some company. So yeah, it's a cultural shift. It really is. And I think it all starts with that like crumbling facade of false security that was kind of disrupted 40 years ago, and it's just continuing to snowball.
Right. So we can also talk about where that false sense of security comes from as well, right? Because you and I both know that everything is a belief and that we operate our entire lives based on beliefs that we don't look at as beliefs, but that we take on as truth. So when people live their whole lives thinking that the only way for them to feel safe is to have that job that they go to every single day, not because there is any reason to believe that, but because it's just a belief that has been passed down from generation to generation since the Industrial Revolution. They have seen their parents do that, even though never questioned, did that make their parents happy? Did that make their parents feel fulfilled about the things they do? Did that lift them up? Did that light them up throughout their whole lives? And I think it really comes from the belief that we cannot do it in any other way. And our education system is literally designed to completely indoctrinate us out of relying on our intuition, right? There is always, I think we talked about this a few times on the spaces we had as well, how in the education system, we learned that there's only one way, there's only one solution, there's the right way, and you cannot make mistakes, you need to follow instructions. And all of this, what it does through years and years of education is simply indoctrinate us out of relying on where the true answers come from, our intuition. And where does that come from? Trusting yourself, which is, I think, a skill, kind of skill we can kind of talk about as well, that we can learn to lean onto and get a lot better at when we focus not on adding more and learning more, but on learning everything that we thought life is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a few things kind of came up for me while you were talking, and the fear of leaving the job. Like, a lot of people stay in these jobs, and they'll say it's for financial reasons, but they have some of these people have hundreds of thousands of dollars saved, like, or more, right? Like, and they're still continuing to show up for this job as if like leaving it or losing that job, they would somehow now be in turmoil and at risk of like their life falling apart. And they have that financial cushion. So it's not just finance, right? I think a lot of it has to do with social status, social value in society. People, especially in America nowadays, and I think increasingly the rest of the world, are starting to tie their identity to their job. I remember people, when I first heard about people in other countries supposedly didn't ask like what you do right away. Like if you go to a party in America, like when you're in your 20s and 30s and stuff like that, like the first question you get is like, what do you do? Right? Like, and that didn't used to be the case. That wasn't someone's identity. That was just something they did for, you know, money on the side. But now, like whether you're a lawyer or whether you're an architect, whether you're, you know, a hairstylist, like it's like it becomes people's entire life. And so when you talk to people about leaving behind their job, I think you're talking about leaving behind their identity in a sense, and that's what I think is scariest for people.
Yeah, I think especially when, well, first of all, very little is talked about the idea of everything in our lives is a matter of identity. We have never been taught how our brain works, how we work, right? And how we could create a life that actually feels alive, that actually feels like I'm doing something meaningful, something that lights me up. I'm sure you talk about this a lot in your content. When we learn how our brain actually works, instead of just accepting those old paradigms that made people miserable for centuries. So I think
Actually, can I point out something you just said there? For centuries, right? Like a lot of people, yeah, a lot of people. Well, we started to create systems in societies where, you know, people were kind of forced into work, and, you know, through slave labor, right? And so now people think they're free, but they're essentially being coerced in a different way, right? They are forced to pay, you know, certain bills. Like it's hard to really exist on the planet without somebody saying you owe them for something, right? Whether it be the government, whether it be utilities, whether it be, you know, all of these services that we're kind of given or have to receive, but then people expect compensation for. So you have to get a job, like in order to have standing in society, right? So you're essentially coerced, whether you want to believe it or not, into doing something of value for society. And I'm a believer in being of service and being of value to society, but I don't want to be coerced. I want to be able to decide how I want to serve others and how I want to contribute value, rather than just, you know, taking whatever job is given to me. I think a lot of people are so like desperate to like have value or like even purpose that they'll convince themselves that the job that is like most convenient is their like life's work or is their purpose, and they'll just take whatever's kind of right in front of them. And you know, I think there's much bigger questions to be asked and answered, and higher purposes to serve than just paying your utility bills.
That's right. Yeah. And I think it's, you know, we're not saying everybody should just quit and then the whole world is just going to rely on entrepreneurs serving each other. Yeah. I mean, that could be a scenario. Yeah, but I think it's really about the intention behind. Like, are we going to work feeling like we are excited, we are fired up, stoked up about working every day? Not just because we get the money, we get that sense of security. Because in that case, if someone is there could be people in that situation, that's okay. But when people say yes, when deep down a small voice, no matter how small that is, keeps telling them, somehow I just don't belong here. Why am I doing this? Why have I, you know, you keep beating yourself up for why you listen to your parents when they kind of forced you into a certain profession, or because you have a degree, now you have to just make it worth by working in a job. It's always the intention behind. If that intention behind is lack, if that intention behind is, well, I have to, I must, I should do it, there's going to be resistance, right? We cannot deny or what's in our heart of hearts, what we really want to create. And a good example is my dad, who firmly believes that I'm taking a big risk and it's super unhelpful for me and useless for me to do this thing, that it's going to fail at one point. I'm going to fall flat on my face, because doing a job is doing your own, like basically having a job is the only way to survive. When I know what lights him up, because he can spend hours and hours in the garden looking around in like any sort of store where they are selling trees, plants, everything else. And he has already said that his biggest dream was always to become a gardener. And when I ask him why he hasn't become one, or because whatever. And I think it's just a great example of how not daring, not taking courage to follow your heart's deepest desires can be devastating.
Yeah, it's like you said, that still small voice. It's something inside of us that just tells us we're meant for something more. And I believe the whole idea of spiritual entrepreneurship that I have talked about in the past, and was the reason behind creating 5-Star Creator, was to try to unblock that fear that people have about scarcity, not having enough money. What's going to happen if I bet on myself and pursue what I feel I'm meant to be doing? If I could remove that fear, empower people to pursue it, that the world would just be a much richer place, that we'd all be better for that. And I'm not saying, like, as you mentioned, that we should blow up our lives or like quit, tomorrow. Like, I understand people have financial responsibilities. We have spouses, we have children, people who depend on us, right? But, I think if you're miserable, if you're not fulfilled in what you do every day, like, it shows. And the people in your life, they can see that, right? I think we need to self-reflect and have these conversations with the people in our lives about who we see ourselves being. And, I knew for myself, like, me and my wife, we want to have a family, but I wasn't going to be ready to be a father until I could, like, look at my children and say, like, I'm my own man. Like, I decide how I live my life. Like, I'm not dependent on others to provide. Like, I can provide for myself. I can provide for you. And, pursuing this path now has given me that confidence, that peace. It was sort of the missing part of, like, who I saw myself as. And so I had conversations with my wife about it, and she supported me because she knew how unhappy I was in my last job. And I think you're not hiding it as well as you may believe you're hiding it if you're unhappy. So I think it's important to have those conversations with the people who matter in your life.
Absolutely. And, it can all be done in like tiny little steps. There could be preparation. There could be things to be done before people take that leap of faith, or not encouraging anybody to just like rush into this without any decision going into it or consideration. But you could build this up without feeling overwhelmed. You can, reach out for help. You can find ways to support you on that journey of building that trust in yourself to say, I'm going to take that leap of faith. Because if I really think about it, when people say, I think, not sure if it was Warren Buffett who said that, something along the lines of, if you think, financial, something along the lines of like, what is financial security, right? Financial security is not receiving a paycheck every single month. If you want to be financially free, build that financial security, instead of getting that limited amount of money every single month, why not be responsible for the money you make when you build a business? Because that's when you truly create that financial security for yourself, to say, I'm going to do my best to learn the skills I need to run a business, marketing, sales, everything else that I need, communication, and then take responsibility for the money I earn in my business. Of course, it can be overwhelming and stressful to think about it as well. But when we look at life, something, again, we were all indoctrinated out of, is that your life is your responsibility. So that also means the money you make in your business, there is always ways you can make money, and a lot more money than what you could earn potentially in a traditional job as well. So instead of getting comfortable with and just playing small with those monthly incoming paychecks, why not just say, I'm gonna be fully on taking radical responsibility for my life and the people's life that I can impact, my family, my friends, my children, or anybody else, and be responsible for the income I make.
Yeah, I don't know what it was within myself, but I felt like I needed to kind of eat what I killed out there. Like I needed to sort of be able to go out and earn money by myself. And that might not be the case for everyone, but I put out messaging on social media platforms about who isn't tired of putting themselves up for a promotion or hoping that the company is going to give them their full bonus, or that the company is going to, give them the raise that they're hoping for because it's been 2 or 3 years since they got a raise. Like, and the company is making more money, so it's like, it's just such a kick, to your self-esteem when you're working for these companies that just aren't valuing you.
Yeah, you're just a number.
Yeah, it's more and more the case. Like you just hear more and more stories about this every day. So I don't know why corporate culture is shifting that way. Like when I go on LinkedIn, there's so many posts like telling people to be kind managers, and it's like there must be some epidemic of like bad managers. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Kind of manager.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I've had some good managers. I've had some bad ones, and the bad ones really mess with you. And I just think that there are a lot of really talented people who could be leaders either at their company or like start their own company. I think the best leaders should start their own businesses and be job creators for people, rather than staying in some pyramid of hierarchy at some big corporation. Especially
and
ones
some
that
of
aren't
those
like
people, some of those people even know that they have talent. Like they know that they have something that potentially could help someone else as well. And that's, I think, that what creates that resistance.
conflict. Yeah.
Just really wanted to encourage anybody who's watching. I love talking to Andrew. He's my friend. We always have great conversations.
Yeah.
But if anyone has any questions, you will only regret the questions you never ask, right? So I always say that on every one of my calls, whenever I start with a new cohort in my community as well. The only questions you will regret are the ones that you don't ask, right? So if you have any questions, you have any doubts, fear, something coming up, you feel like what we talk about is relatable, there is a comment section for anybody, right? So let's just keep the comments firing up because we are all here. We've gone through the process. We've both just basically taken the leap of faith and said, fuck it, I'm just going to do my best and figure it out on the way, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow, that's how we learn to trust ourselves eventually. So we can kind of segue into that as well. If somebody may ask the question how they do that, how do they go all in? The mystical question of the how, right? That we're not supposed to ask if we know how we work. What would you say?
Well, I mean, I think the smarter way to do it is to plan, right? Is to have savings, to make sure that you're not like forced into situations where you have to make a bad decision, right? Because you're running out of money. That nobody ever wants to be in that position, especially if you're starting your own business. You should have that support, that financial support, so that you can make decisions that are in alignment with your vision. So I would say like setting aside money and giving yourself a runway. I think it does take a year, typically from the time you may leave your job to like the time that you're making steady income. They say that with any small business. It's the funny thing, like people get into the creator economy and they have this idea that they're going to start posting on social media, and then they're going to start making money hand over fist within a few months. And that doesn't work that way in any other business. didn't work that way in any other career really. Like you always have to build up, skills in order to become a valuable person. Like most people, first job was an unpaid internship, right? Like, so I think you have to look at it that way with the creator business. And if you're part-time, it's going to take longer. But I think as soon as possible, go all in, because in order to create the volume of content that you need to attract clients and customers to your business, you're going to need more than just an hour or two a day, I think, personally. So planning, if you're going to do it part-time, but for someone like myself, I was let go from my last job in a corporate reduction, and I was just like, I'm done with this. Like I was unhappy. I'm not going to apply for another job I don't want and go in an interview and pretend. It just was inauthentic, and I was done living that way. So now I feel more fully self-expressed. I feel like I'm living authentically, and my journey was I was kind of pushed into taking that leap. But if you have the freedom to kind of choose when you take that leap, and it doesn't have to be so abrupt, like I'd encourage you to plan and do it that way.
Love that. Yeah. Be the one that pushes that chair below you so you get to be hanged. Maybe not the best example.
I did that indirectly by speaking out in company meetings.
Yeah, I think it's like, if we really go back to the fact that if I really want something, and I know like people's energy and passion about something that they are talented in, that they have skills around, their unique set of talents, is so attracting. It's so compelling to a lot of people. So just that, you starting to like post stuff about something that makes you light up will attract some people, without like the skills themselves yet, right? That's obviously going to be adding when you get into business more. But just the fact that someone like Andrew talks so excitedly, with so much passion about helping people, right, with his program, coming up with ideas to talk about it, that already draws so many people closer to you. Or when I talk about messaging and communication, that's the first feedback I get from everybody, how much they enjoy me talking about this, and I help people get involved with the same thing. So I think when we truly focus on not what we are told, but what that voice in ourselves really tells us, and then show up to the best of our abilities, not expecting everything to go perfectly, but getting used to really owning a unique set of skills and talents, that is already a great advantage that I still see so many people don't work on enough. Like a huge part of my messaging membership is not just about, yes, these are the type of contents that you need to create, or these are the touch points you need to make sure you speak to so the right people will join, but also about how you show up as someone who owns what's unique about them. That confidence that already attracts people who want to pay, because money is attracted to confidence. And I think that's the first part. But again, how do you build confidence? You build confidence through practice, through consistency, through staying true to who you are and staying integral. So I think that a big part of this is to focus on what most people don't, and sometimes even people who leave their jobs don't focus on, which is the confidence of like, who do I want to show up as? What is my identity that I get to create and make and step into? Who has the skills and everything else, and does their best to show up getting up 1% better.
Yeah. You mentioned authentically and kind of, showing up as a person.
Yeah, I purposefully we use the word authentic, but that was along the lines of those things.
That's what I translated it to in my mind. I went through the computer and was like, oh, he's saying authentic. But that's fine. That's fair. Something came up on a call with my students earlier today. It was in the sales week aspect of my program. And I talked about how a lot of people have a bad experience with sales. Like they had some sales job when they were younger, and they were given some product that they probably wouldn't have used themselves, and they were told to figure out how to sell it. And they have to like then design this story around how to sell this product. Whereas I think a lot of people like myself, like you, in this creator community, we experience a transformation. So we have this belief that we are now trying to design products around to help convey that belief and transfer that belief. So the product can shape the belief rather than crafting some fabricated story around some pre-existing product. Like it's a whole reversal of like how we operate in terms of sales. Like we are believers, we're selling transformation, and we're just trying to figure out how to build vehicles that help people achieve that. So I think that's why we're so, I'll use the word authentic. And that's why we're so enthusiastic about what it is we're doing, because we're believers, right? We're not just peddling something. We're actually, using our own products and our own,
Right.
belief
And it
system.
kind of lifts off that weight on our shoulders as well, thinking that we're manipulating people. Like I talk a lot about persuasion and its importance because I think both speak to like good-hearted, heart-centered, purpose-driven people who don't just want a business to get the money, because that would make a difference, leaving a job and just doing it for the money itself, if you ask me. And lots of people refrain from like persuasion because they think, oh, I don't want to be salesy, I don't want to be manipulative, sleazy, I don't want to sound like I'm that, and that's the first thing. I'm glad you talked about it, that we need to reframe of what my identity is as someone who's selling. And to me, that authentic selling, if you want me to use that word, I'm gonna beep that out in my replay. I'm kidding. I just really feel like if someone's using the word authenticity, they are not authentic. It's always the people who say, "Oh, you've got to be authentic," who have no idea what it actually means. But yeah, I think you are just being authentic by showing it. Or I like to use the word unapologetically yourself. I think that describes that authenticity we want. So I feel like I can show up in my messaging and really do my best to communicate in a way that helps people to arrive at a decision, whether it's to get straight into the sales page, want the link, or reach out to my DMs, or just simply get to the next stage, whether it's downloading a free product, a freebie, or getting into my community. When I know that what I have, what I built, I'm still building, is 10 times more the value that I charge. And that's what I teach to all my members as well. People ask me, how do I price my product? I'm like, come up with things you can provide and then divide it by 10. And then when you can go into that energy of inviting people onto that journey that you have yourself lived through sometimes, many times, there is no like oomph, right? There's not that feeling of sleaziness about sales. I'm just simply using my offer as an invitation. And whether people take that or not, that's up to them. But it's my job to show up for that sale to the best of my ability and say, here's what I know, here's what you can expect, here are the consequences if you don't make this decision. I'm here to help. Here's my hand, and you can trust me.
Yeah, I think trust is huge if you're trying to do this. Like, there's a lot of voices out there, and people can buy courses from a lot of different people.
People have bought courses, and they have been burnt.
Yeah, and it makes our jobs harder as ones who are seeking to deliver for people. But if you're a creator out there listening to this, I think it's important that you build that trust. Because people are going to buy from someone they can trust. They're going to put their money, credit card into this form on the internet. Like they want to believe that they're going to get the value return on that. So just continue to build to build that trust with your audience through your content.
Right. So can we kind of go a bit into that a bit, because I know you mentioned this on our spaces as well, how so many people think that what they share is value, but they are just part of the noise, and then they are surprised that no one reaches out to them. No one sends them a reply to their newsletters or send them DMs. I mean, to me, I know it sounds a bit harsh, but that's a clear sign that people are not interested in learning more than what they see for free.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to like cold DM 500 people every single day and send 5,000 automated AI-driven whatever cold emails if you have something valuable and communicate that value.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because I think that's there's two facets, right? Having the product that delivers the value, and then knowing how to communicate that value to people. I think people struggle with both. You've got creators out there who are like, can get people's attention. They know how to entertain, and that's kind of what I call them, the entertainers out there, but they don't know how to develop a product. And then you've got these people who are more introverted types that can create products and things like that, but they just get really uncomfortable when it comes to sales. So it's a combination of both. And, historically people have often worked together with partnerships with people, but I think there are people who are establishing one-person businesses like yourself and me, and we're trying to do it all. We're trying to do both. I mean, I like doing both. I like studying these different facets of business. I like learning these different skills. It's a creative process for me. So, I putting those things together and being able to say like, wow, like I wrote the copy for that. I made the video for that. I made the product that, I sold in that video, and people used it and loved it. Like, it's satisfying for me to do all those things and wear all those hats. And, when I was working in a corporate position, I didn't have the opportunity to work in all those aspects of the business. I was just kind of given this one specific task, and it was boring for me. It got kind of stifling after a while. I like to always be growing in the work that I do, and that keeps it interesting. So when you have your own one-person business, it's like personal growth on steroids. I actually put that in a post recently. Like, if you're into personal growth, start a one-person business, because you're going to be forced into growing so much faster than you ever imagined.
Right.
You'll have to learn skills and figure things out
it's not in the books,
breakneck speed.
In the trenches, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, if anyone's watching this, we're gonna be live for the next 15 minutes. So those of you guys who are shy, you may have a question that you are like just a few seconds away from talking yourself out of asking.
Yeah, we won't bite.
There's a comment section there. Okay. We are here to help support. And when you ask questions, and this is what I love about my community, is when you ask a question, you might also help someone else lift off shame and say, I have this question as well, and I would never have asked this, right? So feel free to. We are here to serve and help.
Always happens at like a seminar or something. Someone breaks the ice, and then all of a sudden the questions just start like pouring in.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's always about the quality of questions you ask. Basically, right? The quality of your life depends on the quality of your questions you ask. I think it was Tony Robbins or someone who said that. Probably multiple people throughout the ages. So instead of asking how do I make money or how do I create content, right? Will people resonate with it? Really focus on creating something that is actually valuable, that potentially, without overwhelming yourself of like having to make it really big and something grandiose, something grand. But how do I share something that could be uniquely me, that could be also something that lets the people know that there's something more to explore than just this one, instead of just being the next voice on the internet that comes up with the listicles, the templates, and the platitudes and everything, as if we talk about X, for example. So I think when we focus truly on on the value itself, then that value will come back to us. But if it comes from a place of scarcity, like, oh my God, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to be copying what someone else is saying, or I just read something in my self-help book, so I'm just going to create a video about it with the exact same wording of how that was in that self-help book, right? I don't really necessarily think that's going to be value. But again, value is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, I think I'm glad you brought it up again, because I may have missed answering your question earlier, which is like about people not delivering value. And I think a lot of creators get into it, and I think they're unclear on like what the mission is as to why they're doing it. Like, I think some people get into it because they just want some level of internet fame, and it's very difficult to like know what your niche is and what you're building when that's your motivation. You'll move with whatever looks like the trend, and you see that with a lot of creators. They're just jumping on whatever the new trend is, and they never actually build any trust with an audience because their audience is changing every 3 months, and so the topic has dramatically changed every few months, right? So and then you've got creators who've like had transformation. They feel like they got help from some other big name, and they want to do the same for other people, but they haven't really thought about their personal stack of skills and experience, their personal journey, and how to deliver that information in a way that's uniquely theirs. And I think people like you and me, we try to give people permission to be themselves and to do it in a way that's their own, to think of how to creatively make their message, craft their message, and deliver it on the social platforms. Because with AI now, the listicle stuff, like that top of the funnel type of content is just, because there's no moat anymore. Like, you can crank out like 100 of those pages in 50 seconds
and get the likes and get the comments and get all the saves, but
yeah, I mean, and maybe you'll get the like. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's hard.
Some of them get lots. Like, if you look at some of these like viral threads, all you need to do is just put on a picture of a brain scan and Andrew Huberman,
yeah, I know.
and you get 5 million views. But
right, but
how much of that you can actually convert into paying clients? Like, who says if I'm, let's say, I don't know, relationship coach, and I write a thread about Andrew Huberman, what is the guarantee that someone who's watching that and then is going to check out my profile is actually going to be someone who has the potential to become a paying client?
Yeah, and when we're talking about full-time versus part-time, right? Like, I think the people who are doing that are, left the old boss and are working for the new boss. Like, they work for the social media platform now, and they just don't realize it, right? Like, I didn't leave my 9 to 5 to try to like figure out every day, how can I make X like me? How can I make YouTube like me so that they'll promote my content, right? Like, that's not the game I'm playing. Like, I would much rather have 5 people show up to this, live that we're doing, and really connect with 1 or 2 people, maybe, interest them in what I have to offer as a service, have them come and join me as a student. I've had that happen in the past. And I've also had posts on X that have reached 125, 150,000 people, and that didn't turn into anything for me. So I've had that experience. I know, like, just getting reach is not the equivalent of growing a business. Right. And, if you want to like play that game of trying to get more reach on these platforms and get a payout from X, like, that's a long game to play. And I think you're going to be disappointed when the first payment comes in. I saw a guy post the other day about, hey, he had like, so I think it was like 1 billion views. There's a video on YouTube, and he kind of went through some of his YouTube videos that had like 4 million views and how much he got paid for them. And it was like a few $1,000s for like millions of views. And I thought to myself, like, that's crazy, because if you had millions of views on like a major network television show, like, you would be a millionaire. And YouTube is paying thousands, like a fraction of what it's really worth. So like, I just don't encourage people to play that game. Like, build a business, offer your products and services, build trust with your community, and just forget about like trying to get ad revenue. It's like, and yeah, anyway.
Yeah, we could have an entire hour conversation on
Yeah.
this. I
Yeah.
think we encourage like high quality content. Like I think that's a must. But it doesn't mean high quality is basically looking at what works for others based on views, which is the surface level, but really focusing on, I think it really all comes from what a lot of creators don't understand because of this resistance of like making people pay or their money stories as well, of what it means to truly help. And I always ask people, are you truly purpose driven if all you focus on is how do I just give away all the free stuff? How do I post the next free content instead of understanding that's never going to change anyone's lives? Maybe they will say, yes, okay, thank you so much for this, for that. But if you truly want someone to change their lives, if you truly want to contribute to someone experiencing a transformation, wouldn't it be better if you build a messaging ecosystem that gets them to trust you, your process, and themselves so that they say, I'm going to commit to it. So they are in your space, in your business, where you have their attention, where you have their commitment. And I think that's what a lot of creators don't understand. Even people who say, I'm purpose driven, I'm heart centered. Heart centered doesn't mean I'm going to give away everything, worry about my views for 3 hours. I'm just going to keep on posting. That's what I used to think. And I ended up in like debt. I was in like 4,000 pounds credit card debt because I thought I just have to be authentic and just give away stuff. When it's really about understanding, people don't appreciate free. You might get the likes, you might get, oh, it was amazing, 100 likes, 100 comments on, this was great, I needed this reminder. But if it doesn't help someone change their habits, their way of thinking, their belief as course creators or coaches we talk about, are you really helping? Instead of creating content that then pulls the right people closer to you, instead of optimizing your content for the people who wouldn't have the money, they wouldn't invest or have the intention to commit.
Yeah. I know for myself, I started to grow pretty quickly on X. I talked about philosophy and spirituality, especially when I started talking about spirituality, things kind of like picked up for me. And I shared, just deeper thoughts that I might have had for the day. And I think people found those insightful and they would follow me. But as you mentioned, they weren't necessarily interested in investing in themselves, in what I had to offer. When I started to post more promotional content about my course and things like that, my likes started to drop, my reach started to drop. I lost people. I lost like 30 followers last week, kind of pushing my course. And I thought to myself, good riddance. Like, I don't want those 30 followers. They were probably people who like jumped on board early on when things were like, when I was just dumping free value on the internet. And now like I'm putting out an ask and
Or a
they
charity.
have no interest. And it's like, good. Like I want to attract the people who are ready to invest in themselves, want to receive transformation, want to work to earn that. And, we need to stand firm in our in our offer and the price that we put on our products and services, and and not just try to pander to getting likes and to getting more followers, because a lot of those people are easy come, easy go. They're not really interested in
That's right.
like transformation.
Yeah. So just to kind of go back to our original topic,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we've shared lots of useful stuff for them. But I think it really all starts with, if someone is still in their full-time job, getting clear on what value I create that then will eventually help me build that business, and that people will appreciate enough to say, you've provided me so much value, you've encouraged me. So much of the value people think about is not that what you talk about, the information, right? It's a lot more about the encouragement, the personal stories, lifting off shame, helping them see how it's all possible, giving people permission in your content, building a demand basically for the next thing, and then building that trust as a person, as a real person who who owns their weaknesses, their imperfections, and has something vulnerable to share. It's so much less about what to do and the listicles, which people wouldn't take action on anyway.
Yeah. With the minutes we have left, I wanted to at least acknowledge, like you said, coming back to the title of our topic, I wanted to touch upon it earlier, but we said full-time versus part-time. So we talked about a lot of the benefits of full-time. I mean, what are the benefits of part-time in your eyes? Like, is there an argument that can be made for staying part-time?
Meaning part-time business owner, as in,
or staying in your 9 to 5 and doing this like on the side, because some people
like
I think do it for forever. Again, like on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people on there who are building audiences to help them in their corporate career, so they have no interest in leaving the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I
think well, one benefit is obviously comfort, which is why a lot of people do it. I think it is a huge leap of faith for many, and I know people need to reflect on it, and many people are in their head and overthinking of how do I do this, how do I do that, I'm not ready. But to me, and I can see that so many people on X as well who are doing it part-time, the energy of their content is just simply, I don't know how much they are converting, obviously, but sometimes I see who is doing it full-time, who is doing it out of passion, out of purpose, out of basically driven by abundance and not by keeping it small because they just don't have either the energy, the time, the mental capacity to do it. So to me, the only benefit of doing it part-time, if someone is really wanting to build that business, is comfort. Because as you said in the beginning, when you're in that knowing and you know that this is going to work, and however it works, you're going to figure it out with whatever support you need, you are going to show up with a different energy. You're going to show up as an advocate, as you said, right? An advocate for a cause, an advocate for a belief that when the right people get into and they are empowered to make that decision, they will buy.
Yeah. I think in a sense, there's a rebelliousness to what we're doing. We're kind of leading people outside of the beaten path, and it's hard to lead people if you're not leading by example, right? So I think that's what resonates with people. I know for myself, like, I burned the boats in a lot of ways. I had a career as a software engineer making, a good 6-figure salary. And I'm on LinkedIn, like practically putting my middle finger up to the whole thing. Like I learned a lot of skills in the corporate world and stuff like that. So I'm not saying like it's all bad. I met a lot of good people and everything, but like, it's just, I outgrew that and I have no interest in going back to it. So I kind of turned my back on that career. And it was kind of that last boat to burn for me was LinkedIn, because that's the professional, platform. So doing that was really liberating for me. And I think things, started to really click even more after doing that. I had people reach out to me from my grade school I hadn't spoken to in 15 years that are like, got let go from their job, a week or so earlier. And they're like, thanks for posting this. I really needed this.
Like, you never know, right? You never know.
Yeah.
There are things that will happen that you never expect, beyond your expectations. Just something that came to me and we can wrap up is one benefit of doing it part-time is the ability to still use your job to build your skills, to keep building your skills potentially on your company's budget, right? That allows you to build skills that then you can monetize. But I think if anyone gets a bit more introspective and looks at what they have, they may not be able to start building that big empire from what they really want to do from the get-go. But your first product, your first offer doesn't have to be the one that you end up with 5 years from now. None of the people that I know, you can even think of like Danko or anybody else who's more recent, started with what they eventually do like 2-3 years in business. So it's really just about starting with something, and then it's your business. You get to make the choices.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of younger people today are trying to start their own business, but they don't have really any skills that they've acquired professionally. They don't, they've never worked for anyone, and they've never had the opportunity to learn anything that's of value to others. So I think it's important that you have some skills if you're going to start a business.
And if, we are not trying to ditch that either, like dish them, because if someone is willing to pay for that, sure. Like, it's really about confidence and doing your best to say, okay, maybe I have a challenging client or a challenging request from a client, but I'm going to do my best and really get better, honing on that skill. Brilliant. So we really hope that people watching this are going to be walking away with something to implement, something to reflect on. I always say we don't just create content to be the next 1 hour replay on the internet, but really to help people see, light a spark under their arse and make sure that they reflect on it and they take away something. So if anyone wants to reach out, we are both on X and on YouTube as well. And we'd be very happy to connect with anybody if you feel like this was resonating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't hesitate. Like, the DMs are open, as they say, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You might get a selfie with Andrew and his dog.
He's annoying. He's ready for his walk, his noon walk.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew, for this. This was an amazing conversation. Lots of truth bombs. And yeah, this is a series of live streams. So if anybody feels like our message is resonating, we'd love to keep serving you, helping you guys, invite you in a conversation in the comment sections as well. So hope to see you guys in about a week. Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody. Have a lovely weekend, everyone.
Thanks, Chevy.